Have you ever noticed that some people walk into a room and suddenly everyone's behavior is rearranged without them even realizing it? It's not charisma, it's not a gift, it's not luck, and it's definitely not because they are good people. In fact, this is the mistake that silently destroys those who try to be accepted, believing that the world rewards kindness, effort, or loyalty. It doesn't. It never has. And Machiavelli knew this centuries before you were born. The truth, the one no one says out loud, is brutal. The world doesn't react to who you are. It reacts to who you represent. And if you represent someone easily accessible, they'll treat you as replaceable. If you represent someone always available, they'll use you as disposable. But when you become the presence that commands silence, tension, and respect without raising your voice, everything changes. And the most interesting thing, this power doesn't come from physical strength, but from psychological strategy. Today, you're going to discover exactly how this mechanism works. Not theory, not poetry, pure strategy. The same logic that Machiavelli would call politics guided by reality, not by ideals. The same force that transforms ordinary people into figures that no one dares to ignore. The same influence that creates that rare kind of impact that speaks louder than words, the kind that makes an entire room stop and stop moving when you walk in. But before I show you the step-by-step process, answer me honestly. How many times have you felt like nobody takes you seriously? How many times have you realized that you talk, explain, insist, and nothing changes? How many times have you been the right person at the wrong time because no one saw your true value? If this hurts you, great. The pain here acts as an invitation, because today you're going to learn how to turn the tables, and not in the nice way, the strategic way, the quiet way, the way that works. If something inside you awakened while listening, don't ignore that feeling. This channel isn't about videos, it's about memories. Remember who you were before the fear, before the exhaustion, before the silence. Each new video here is a different reflection of your own soul, an invitation to understand what the world never taught you. The power you seek outside has always been within you. If you feel that this journey speaks to what lives silently within you, sign up now. Not to follow yet another creator, but to reconnect with something the world tried to make you forget. Because here, every word was made to heal, each reflection to awaken, and each video serves as a reminder you are not alone on the path back to yourself. Click on subscribe and turn the algorithm into a daily reminder of who you really are. He realizes too early that there's a huge confusion between being appreciated and being truly valued. Machiavelli already warned that politics guided by reality, not by ideals, always exposes this cruel difference. The world loves convenience, not necessarily genuine value. And when someone is too good, too available, too helpful, they end up becoming exactly that, convenience. Do people appreciate them? Of course. Do they applaud? Sometimes. But do they value them? Rarely. Because in the human mind, what is too constant loses its shine, and what is too cheap loses its strength. The end justifies the means, said the old Florentine. And here the end is being seen as someone essential, but nobody becomes essential when they give everything without demanding anything in return. He begins to understand this when he notices that his kindness becomes other people's plan B, not a priority. And it is at this moment that a light goes on. Kindness without power is just social decoration, charming but disposable. And behind this lies something even deeper, which he perceives when he least expects it. When he observes true human nature, the kind Machiavelli studied with almost obsession, he realizes that people don't value what is free and always available. Notice, the 24-hour restaurant is never the most desired. Running water never receives thanks. The friend who always says yes becomes the most ignored. This happens because deep down, everyone operates according to the silent logic of virtù and fortuna. What is rare seems powerful. What is constant seems weak. And without realizing it, he has fallen into the very trap that the Renaissance prince feared most, being loved for an appearance of virtue, but never respected for the calculated use of force. He doesn't know it yet, but this feeling of emptiness, of giving everything and receiving crumbs, doesn't stem from bad luck, but from a fragile position. Because being appreciated is comfortable, but being valued requires a different kind of game. A game he doesn't yet fully understand, but which is beginning to reveal itself before his eyes. That's why he begins to realize that being too nice is almost a silent sentence to being ignored. Machiavelli would say it's better to be feared than loved, not in the sense of spreading fear, but in the sense of symbolizing strength, limits, and structure. And strength here has nothing to do with aggression. It has to do with positioning. He notices that people only seek him out when they need something and disappear when he needs them. The old dynamic of, "You're great, but perfectly replaceable." And it's at this point that he understands that his kindness has become a convenience for others. But it's also at this point that he begins to awaken to constant adaptability, an internal movement that changes everything. Because by seeing this dynamic, he finally opens space for a silent turning point, the transition from someone appreciated to someone indispensable. And deep down, he knows that something much bigger is about to begin. He begins to discover that true power never arises from sympathy, but from dependence. Machiavelli knew this when he said that politics guided by reality, not by ideals, always reveals who dominates the game. It is not the most likable, but the one whose presence becomes indispensable. And it's curious how this appears in everyday life. Notice that colleague at work whom no one dares to contradict. It's not because he is loved, it's because he controls information, processes, or access that no one else does. He has done what Machiavelli would call the calculated use of force, not physical force, but structural force. Without him, nothing moves forward. And when he understands this, he realizes that the game was never about being likable, it's about being necessary. And necessity is the kind of power that no one admits to, but everyone fears losing. Little by little, he begins to see what truly sustains respect, far beyond the appearance of virtue. Creating dependency isn't about manipulation, it's about positioning oneself intelligently. He begins to develop rare skills, those that solve problems no one else knows how to solve. This is how Machiavelli's own loyal armies emerge, formed by people who trust him because they know that without his presence, everything falls apart. He learns to link his help to reciprocation, not as blackmail, but as a strategy. And the reciprocation doesn't have to be money. It can be influence, collaboration, partnership, public recognition. Something as simple as, "I can help you with this, but later I want to talk about such and such a project," changes the whole game. It's an exchange, not a donation. And curiously, this creates a light, elegant, silent psychological debt, the kind that makes people respect him not only for what he does, but for what he represents. And the feeling of representation is a social weapon that few know how to use. He also realizes that dependence isn't built solely on technical skill. It's built on strategic presence. It's when he becomes the only one who knows how to finish an important project, or the only one capable of calming a conflict, or the only one who deeply understands a system that others ignore. And this creates what Machiavelli would call decisions based on real human nature. Nobody wants to lose someone who makes their life easier. This is how new forms of invisible power emerge, starting as simple exchanges and becoming emotional pillars behind the scenes. Gradually, he transforms into the piece that, if removed, causes noise, chaos, and delay. People begin to realize, even unconsciously, that his absence is costly. And it is precisely here that he feels something new growing within him, something that prepares the ground for the next type of power, the one that is not seen but is felt. He begins to understand that the strongest power is never the one that is visible, but the one that infiltrates decisions without needing to raise its voice. Machiavelli knew that politics guided by reality, not by ideals, requires that the individual not reveal all their cards. And when he acts this way, silently but present, something curious happens. People begin to change decisions because they can't explain it, but they think it's better. This is invisible power. It's not shouting, it's not imposition, it's subtle influence, almost like gravity. He utters a light phrase in a meeting, and minutes later, someone repeats it as if it were their own idea. He suggests a path, and, as if by magic, everyone begins to believe that they always thought that way. It's the kind of force that works effortlessly because it is born from a deep understanding of human nature. And whoever masters this understands why sometimes it's better to be feared than loved. Feared in the sense of being respected for the silent intelligence that guides the environment. The invisible power works when he understands that the end justifies the means isn't about brutality but about emotional strategy. By not showing off too much, he allows the egos of others to expand, and this creates natural allies. The most insecure feel relieved, the most competitive feel an advantage, and the most vain believe they are in control. And when everyone thinks they dominate the game, he dominates from within. Machiavelli would call this the appearance of virtue combined with the calculated use of force. He seems neutral, but knows exactly where to apply weight. Sometimes it's just listening more than speaking. Sometimes it's letting silence do the hard work. Other times, it's calmly suggesting a solution while everyone else freaks out. In conflict situations, this type of presence creates more respect than any noisy posture. And little by little, the environment gets used to looking to him before deciding. This power grows stronger when he realizes that influencing is not manipulating, but building fertile ground for noble ideas to flourish. When he wants to guide a group, he doesn't push, he asks. He doesn't command, he suggests. He doesn't demand, he creates context, and this makes others feel that they arrived at the conclusions on their own. This is where virtù and fortuna meet. He acts skillfully, but lets apparent luck play its part. People begin to trust him because they feel stability, not because he shouts dominance. And the most interesting thing is that no one can pinpoint exactly what he did. They only realize that somehow everything always ends up going in the direction he chose. And this begins to change how his presence is perceived, silently preparing the ground for something even stronger, the art of strategic absence. He discovers that always being available is almost a sentence of silent devaluation. Machiavelli already warned, with that uncomfortable precision, that human beings quickly become accustomed to what they have at hand. When someone is always there, responding quickly, always helping, appearing in any situation, their presence becomes part of the scenery. And no one notices the scenery. That's why politics guided by reality, not by ideals, teaches that scarcity generates respect. When he begins to limit his presence, he notices something fascinating. People start to measure their words, adjust their behavior, and choose better when to call on him. Not because he has become arrogant, but because he has become rare. Machiavelli would call this the calculated use of force, not the force of commanding, but the force of retreating. To let there be a little lack, to let them feel it, It is in this game that he discovers that sometimes silence has more authority than any speech. Strategic absence works because it awakens in people what they try to hide: fear of loss. And the fear of loss is stronger than the pleasure of presence. Machiavelli understood this when he said it is better to be feared than loved. Precisely in this emotional sense, never literally. He begins to withdraw a little and suddenly notices that the invitations increase, the messages become more kind, his opinions are treated like gold. It's almost funny. The less he appears, the more he weighs. And this is not magic, it's real human nature. People only value what is at risk of disappearing, just as rare products cost more and stocks appreciate when they are scarce. He realizes that his absence creates tension, and tension creates desire. And desire, when well managed, creates respect. But this silent movement begins to open space for something even deeper: the construction of systems that depend on him even when he is not present. The calculated withdrawal also helps him test who truly values him. Those who only approach him when he's always available begin to disappear, but those who understand his rhythm, his value, and his silence remain, and these people form something akin to their own loyal armies. Machiavelli knew that lasting power isn't built with those who only appear at convenient times. It's during strategic absence that true value is revealed. He perceives who tries to replace him, who tries to imitate him, and above all, who misses him. And this absence is essential because it shows that his presence has a real emotional impact. When he notices this, he understands that absence isn't escape. It's a tool. And a powerful tool, one that prepares the ground for the next level, not just being desired, but being structural within the environment he's in. He realizes there's a huge difference between being the punctual hero and being the system itself. The hero resolves crises, the system prevents crises from existing, and it's at this point that Machiavelli would be surgical. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals, shows that whoever dominates the system dominates the game. He begins to build processes, flows, and structures that function because he exists and cease to function when he is absent. This is not arrogance, it's strategic intelligence. Think of that employee that nobody can fire because he knows all the insider information, all the access points, all the internal keys. This is the calculated use of force in its most sophisticated form, not through imposition, but through architecture. When he ceases to be the one who helps and becomes the one who sustains, something changes in people's perception. He becomes seen as the center, and centers are not easily replaced. Systemic value means creating a structural dependency, what Machiavelli would call his own loyal armies, not because they obey out of fear, but because they trust in the stability he generates. He understands that if he wants real power, he needs to stop putting out fires and start building networks, routines, mechanisms, and methods. For example, at work, he creates a pattern that only he fully understands. In his studies, he develops techniques that differentiate him. In his personal life, he creates rituals that strengthen his emotional presence. Each system that is born in his hands becomes an extension of his virtue, his skill. And fortune, chance, begins to work in his favor because everything he builds becomes self-relevant. Others realize that removing him requires more effort than keeping him around, and it is in this silent contrast that respect grows. But an even more psychological kind of force is about to emerge. Over time, systemic value becomes so strong that its presence ceases to be merely useful and becomes structural, almost like an invisible pillar. Machiavelli would say that this is the moment when decisions begin to be based on real human nature. No one dares to mess with the one who sustains the functioning of things. He becomes the kind of person whose absence causes collapse, or at the very least, widespread discomfort. People begin to wonder, how does he make this work? Why does everything flow when he's here? How are we going to solve this without him? And even if they try to feign indifference, insecurity appears. He becomes the cog that cannot be removed. But something even deeper begins to happen beneath this technical structure. He begins to occupy not only functions, but also psychological spaces, preparing the ground for the next phase, where influence ceases to be logical and becomes emotional. When he reaches this point, he discovers that the deepest power lies not in the function he performs, but in the psychological space he occupies in the minds of others. Machiavelli knew that politics guided by reality, not by ideals, is shaped by perception. And perception is an emotional field, not a logical one. He begins to notice that people seek his presence not only because he solves problems, but because he transmits security. It's like that friend who enters the room and suddenly everything seems less chaotic. This is psychological integration, when the mind of another associates his figure with stability, clarity, and direction. He doesn't speak louder, but he speaks more deeply. He doesn't control, but he anchors, and little by little, each person creates in him a kind of inner haven. It's the kind of influence that isn't learned in books, although Machiavelli hinted at it when he spoke about the appearance of virtue. It's not real virtue that matters. It's the meaning that his presence triggers within others. This integration happens silently, in everyday life, almost effortlessly. He notices that when he guides someone, the person breathes easier. When he appears in a tense environment, the atmosphere balances. When he offers his opinion, even a small one, everything seems to gain clarity. It is at this point that he understands that human beings always seek someone capable of ordering chaos, and this is a huge strategic advantage. Machiavelli would say that this type of influence is a calculated use of emotional force. He doesn't need to impose anything because his mere presence already reorganizes the minds of others. And it's fascinating how this connects with real human nature. People follow those who make them feel safe. This type of value is so profound that even when someone tries to replace it, they perceive a strange emptiness, like exchanging a compass for a flashlight. It illuminates, but it doesn't guide. And this lack opens the way for something even more powerful. Psychological integration also creates an interesting phenomenon. Its absence begins to generate disorientation. Not because others are incapable, but because they have become accustomed to the emotional structure it provides. It's the logic of Machiavelli's own loyal armies. Not loyalty through submission, but through trust. He becomes a reference point, and reference points are not easily changed. When he's not around, people hesitate more, take longer, question more. It's as if something essential is missing. And it is precisely this absence that places him on another level of value. He ceases to be merely useful and becomes indispensable in the psychology of others. But there is an even more advanced type of influence, which acts not only on current stability, but also on people's future. A subtle kind of control over what they expect, desire and fear, and this is what begins to form at the next level. He begins to realize that the most subtle and at the same time most devastating power lies in the ability to influence what others expect from the future. Machiavelli, who read the human soul as one deciphers maps, understood that politics guided by reality, not by ideals, always places hope at the center of human behavior. When he becomes the one who offers direction, clarity, and perspective, something profound happens. People begin to see him as the door through which their future seems to make sense. It's not magic, it's psychology. He offers vision when everyone else only sees fog. He sees possibilities when the rest only see obstacles. He speaks of paths when others speak of fear. And without realizing it, he becomes the silent architect of others' optimism. It's an elegant form of calculated use of emotional force, not to dominate, but to guide. And whoever guides the hope of others controls much more than opinions. They control movements. When he becomes a reference point for the future, something curious happens. People adjust their decisions around what they think he thinks. Machiavelli would call this virtù and fortuna working together, his ability to shape the luck of others. If he says, "I think this path is promising," dozens follow. If he suggests caution, everyone hits the brakes. And it's not because he commands, it's because his vision becomes an emotional compass. He inspires, and inspiration is an advanced form of invisible power. This is how behaviors like, "I want to know what he would do," arise. This is how someone becomes a benchmark for choices. He becomes the psychological center of a group's expectations. And when a group waits for someone before acting, that someone controls the course, not by imposition, but by symbolism. This is the most discreet dominion that exists, influencing what no one sees, but everyone feels. This silent control of hope also creates a kind of anticipatory longing. People begin to fear losing his guidance, not because they are emotionally dependent, but because they know that without him, it's like walking in the dark without a flashlight. This feeling further deepens his position of essential value. Machiavelli knew that true human nature anchors itself in those who offer a sense of the future, and when he becomes that figure, his presence gains an aura, almost like a strategic light that defines the path. But he begins to understand something even rarer. Controlling hope is not the apex, it's the prelude. There is one last move capable of transforming presence into myth, scarcity into reverence, influence into legacy. And this move is so counterintuitive, so powerful and so subtle that Machiavelli would consider it a masterpiece of strategy, disappearing precisely at the peak. He finally discovers the strategy that separates ordinary players from legendary figures, disappearing precisely when at their peak. Machiavelli knew that politics guided by reality, not ideals, demands moves that seem irrational to those who live on the surface, but absolutely logical to those who understand true human nature. When he disappears at the moment of greatest influence, something fascinating happens. His presence ceases to be just a presence. It becomes a myth. People start talking about him in the corridors, imagining what he would say, predicting what he would do. The end justifies the means precisely here, because the calculated absence creates such a powerful scarcity that it transforms respect into reverence. In the minds of others, he ceases to be a person and becomes a symbol. And symbols never die. Disappearing at the peak is the emotional version of having your own loyal armies. People continue to follow you even when you're not there. This is the rarest kind of power. When he retreats at his peak, he unlocks a psychological dynamic that few understand, the emotional value of what one can no longer have. Machiavelli warned against being hated, but also against being too commonplace, and disappearing at the height of his career masterfully balances these two forces. Absence creates space for longing. Longing creates idealization, and idealization creates a kind of power that no discourse can deliver. It's like artists who become immortal because they stopped early, or leaders who are remembered because they disappeared before they wore out. He realizes that his strategic retreat causes each person to begin to reconstruct his image in their own mind, and this mental version is always stronger than the real one. This is the calculated use of psychological force, letting the imagination work for you, and when the imagination works, no one forgets you. On the contrary, they transform you into a silent reference. Disappearing at the peak isn't abandonment, it's perpetuation. He understands that constant adaptability includes knowing when presence helps and when absence multiplies. When he decides to retreat at the exact moment everyone wants him around, he plants a powerful doubt. What would it be like if he was still here? This doubt becomes an invisible presence, and invisible presence becomes sacred authority. Machiavelli knew that controlling the imagination was stronger than controlling actions, and here he masters the imagination flawlessly. Others miss him, try to imitate him, seek advice he's no longer there to give. And ironically, it's precisely this absence that immortalizes his value. But now the cycle is complete, and the moment arrives to tie all the pieces together. Need, dependence, invisibility, absence, systems, psychology, hope, and myth. The next step is to transform all of this into a direct call to the viewer, an invitation to become essential. Now that he sees through every layer of this silent game, he realizes that nothing changes as long as he continues seeking approval, trying to be nice, trying to please those who never treated him as a priority. Machiavelli would say that politics guided by reality, not by ideals, demands the courage to abandon the role of the replaceable nice guy and assume the role of an indispensable figure. And indispensability isn't something you're born with. It's something you make yourself. He now has all the pieces: need, dependence, invisible power, strategic absence, systemic value, psychological integration, control of hope, and disappearance at the peak. The question that remains is simple but cutting. What are you going to do with this? Are you going to continue being the free emotional support for people who wouldn't lift a finger for you? Or are you finally going to become someone people can't ignore? Someone whose absence weighs more than the presence of others? If you apply even half of what you've heard, your social, professional, and emotional life will never be the same. Start small. Choose an area where you're still seen as always available, and introduce scarcity. Choose a skill to master until no one can replace you. Choose a person to observe how they react to your silence. Choose an environment to practice invisible influence. The end justifies the means when the means is you building your own centrality. True human nature responds to those who stand firm. And deep down, you know this. Because a part of you is tired of being underestimated. Tired of being obvious. Tired of being too accessible. Tired of being a name that isn't missed. From today on, you are no longer a helper. You are an axis, a center, an emotional cost for anyone who tries to lose you. So I ask you directly, not as a narrator, but as a mentor, when was the last time someone truly felt your absence? When was the last time you realized you entered a place and the energy changed simply because you arrived? When was the last time someone thought, we can't do this without him? If these answers hurt, great. Pain is a compass. Pain is a warning. Pain is a path. And now you have everything you need to become the presence that weighs heavily, the voice that shapes decisions, the name that makes a difference. But that depends on you. The turning point isn't in the world, it's in how you choose to position yourself in it. Become dangerous, become necessary, become essential, and never again ask for space. Force the world to reorganize itself around you. So tell me, after everything you've heard here, what part of your life will you still allow to remain cheap? What space will you still allow to be treated as if you were replaceable? Because deep down you know, nobody gives you value when you try to be accepted. Value is born when you decide to become necessary, and that starts with a single move, changing the way you position yourself. You now possess the weapons that Machiavelli would place in the hands of a prince. Strategic presence, calculated silence, clear boundaries, absence at the right moment, and an influence that outweighs any words. But knowing this changes nothing if you continue with the same habits that have kept you small until now. The question is, will you continue to be the person everyone can easily access, or will you become the presence that makes an entire room adjust its tone when you arrive? Before leaving this video, answer in the comments. What will be the first power move you implement today? I want to know, I want to see your mind working, and I want to witness your rise. And if you want to continue learning how to become untouchable, someone the world can't ignore, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. The next video might be exactly what you need to finally break through.